The city streets were busy, but for the homeless man, each day was a struggle just to survive. He didn't have much, just a small backpack with a few belongings, tattered clothes, and a heart that still hoped for something better. The cold concrete beneath his worn shoes was his only home, and people often walked past without a second glance. That day, the homeless man had exactly $8 left. $8 was all he had to his name. It wasn't much, but it was enough for a small meal or maybe a cup of coffee. He had been saving it for a few days, trying to stretch it out, hoping something good might come along. As he walked near the edge of the city, by an old gas station, he saw someone who caught his eye. A man sitting on the curb looking tired and worn out. The man wore a leather jacket with a patch that caught the homeless man's attention, the patch of the Hells Angels. The biker looked defeated, rubbing his face and staring at the ground. The homeless man hesitated. He didn't know this biker or anything about the Hells Angels except stories he had heard on the news, but he could see the man was struggling. The leather jacket was cracked and dirty. The man's boots were worn down, and he looked like he hadn't eaten all day. Without thinking much, the homeless man walked closer. "You okay?" he asked quietly. The biker looked up, surprised to hear a kind voice. He nodded slowly but didn't say much. The homeless man looked down at his own hands, empty except for the few crumpled bills he held. He thought about his last $8. What could he do with that? Buy a sandwich for himself or give it away? In that moment, he decided. He held out the $8. "Here," he said simply. "Use this. Get some food or gas. Whatever you need." The biker's eyes widened. No one had ever offered him help like this before. Not with money, not with kindness. He hesitated, but then took the bills with a small nod. "Thank you," he said quietly. The homeless man smiled. "Take care of yourself," he said, then turned to walk away. As he walked, the homeless man didn't know what to think. Had he done the right thing? He was risking his own chance at a meal by giving away his last money. But something inside told him it was worth it. The biker, clutching the money, felt a spark of hope. For the first time in days, maybe weeks, someone had shown him kindness without judgment. That day, neither man knew how much this small act of generosity would change their lives. The homeless man had given away what little he had, not expecting anything in return. The biker had received a lifeline just when he needed it most. The city went on around them, busy and unaware. But a quiet story of kindness was beginning, a story that would soon bring hundreds of people together. The homeless man never expected what would happen after that night. Helping the struggling biker was just something he felt he had to do. He only had $8, and most people around him would think that was barely enough to survive, let alone help someone else. But when he saw the man by the roadside, clearly in trouble and needing help, he didn't hesitate. The man was a member of the Hells Angels, a group many people feared or misunderstood. But the homeless man didn't care about the biker's reputation or background. What mattered was that this man needed help, and he could offer it. With the last $8 in his pocket, he bought the small parts and tools that were needed to fix the broken motorcycle. It wasn't a fancy repair or a full mechanic's job, but it was enough to get the bike running again. After the repair was done, the biker looked at him with a mix of surprise and gratitude. He wasn't used to people being kind to him, especially not someone who had so little to give. The homeless man didn't ask for anything in return. He just wanted to see someone get through a hard time, the way he knew what it felt like to be stuck in a tough spot. What the homeless man didn't realize was how powerful this simple act of kindness was. The Hells Angels, like many groups, value respect and loyalty above all. When the biker told his friends what had happened, the story spread quickly. They talked about how this man, with nothing but $8 and a big heart, had helped one of their own when others might have just walked away. Before long, word reached more members of the group. They began to see this homeless man in a different light. He wasn't just someone struggling on the streets. He was someone who had shown real courage and kindness when it mattered most. This respect started to change the way they treated him. Instead of ignoring him or avoiding him like many others did, they started to visit, bringing food and supplies. They talked to him, listened to his story, and treated him like a person, not just a homeless man. The homeless man was surprised by this. He had spent so much time feeling invisible, pushed aside by people who saw him as a problem or a burden. But here with these bikers, he found something he hadn't had in a long time: acceptance. They didn't judge him for his clothes, his past, or his situation. They saw him for who he was, a kind person who had helped someone in need. As more bikers arrived, the homeless man began to feel like he was part of a community. They didn't expect him to change overnight or pretend to be someone he wasn't. Instead, they offered small acts of kindness, a warm meal, a clean shirt, or a place to rest for a few hours. These little things meant the world to him. For the first time in a long while, he didn't feel alone. One day, a group of bikers came together and decided to help him in a bigger way. They knew he had skills. He was good with his hands and had a sharp mind for fixing things. They wanted to give him a chance to use those talents to build a better life. They helped him find a small job at a local garage where he could work and earn some money. It wasn't much at first, but it was a start. The homeless man worked hard every day. He was determined not to waste this chance. He remembered how it felt to be stuck on the streets with nowhere to turn, and he wanted to make sure he never went back to that place. The bikers checked in on him regularly, encouraging him and reminding him that he was not alone. They shared stories of their own struggles and how they had found strength in each other. As the weeks passed, the homeless man began to feel hope again. He saved every dollar he earned, slowly building a small nest egg. He started to look for a more permanent place to live. The kindness of the bikers had given him more than just material help. It gave him belief in himself. The town began to notice the change too. People who once crossed the street to avoid him now greeted him with smiles and respect. The homeless man was becoming a symbol of how kindness and community could transform a life. His story spread beyond the bikers to others in the town, inspiring people to look past appearances and see the good in everyone. One chilly evening, as the homeless man closed up the garage, a large group of motorcycle enthusiasts showed up at his door. They had come to thank him, not just for his past kindness, but for the example he had set. More than 300 bikers had come, all gathered to celebrate the man who had started with just $8 and a big heart. The homeless man stood in front of the crowd, overwhelmed by the support. He thought back to that night when he helped the biker on the roadside, never imagining it would lead to this. What had started as a small act of kindness had grown into a movement of compassion and friendship. The bikers had shown him that no matter where you come from, everyone deserves a chance. They taught him that sometimes, all it takes is one person to believe in you to change your whole life. And in return, he had reminded them of the power of kindness, the simple choice to help someone in need even when you have little to give. That night, the homeless man realized something important. It wasn't about how much money you had or where you came from. It was about the choices you make and the kindness you show. And with that, his life was forever changed. The next morning, the homeless man woke up to a surprising sight. The cold air was still heavy, but something felt different. When he stepped outside from where he usually rested, he noticed something he could hardly believe. A long line of motorcycles stretched down the street. It wasn't just a few bikes. There were hundreds, row after row of shiny engines, leather seats and chrome parts glistening in the early sunlight. The sound of engines and low rumbles filled the air. He blinked, wondering if he was dreaming or if his eyes were playing tricks on him. But this was real. Over 300 bikers, many wearing the patches and symbols of the Hells Angels, were gathered in front of him. They were here because of him, because of the kindness he showed the day before. The man felt a wave of emotions. At first he was shocked and confused. Why would so many people come all the way here just for him? Then a warmth spread through his chest, a feeling he hadn't experienced in a long time. He was grateful, hopeful, and a little overwhelmed all at once. The biker he had helped the night before approached him with a big smile and a friendly handshake. "We wanted to say thank you," the biker said simply. "Your kindness meant a lot to us. Even when you had nothing, you gave what you could. That kind of heart doesn't go unnoticed." Around him, other bikers began to gather, nodding in agreement. They brought bags filled with food, warm clothes, blankets, and other supplies. Some handed him small gifts, a jacket to keep him warm during the cold nights, a pair of sturdy boots, and even a little money to help him get by. It wasn't charity, they called it brotherhood, and they meant it deeply. The homeless man looked around at the sea of faces, some tough-looking with tattoos and leather, others younger and quieter. But beneath their rugged appearances, he could see kindness shining through. It surprised him because he had always thought bikers were rough and only cared about themselves. Now he saw something different: community and respect. One of the bikers asked if the man wanted to join them for breakfast at a nearby diner. He was hesitant at first, unsure if he belonged, but the warmth in their eyes and the genuine smiles encouraged him to say yes. As they rode together, he noticed how they treated him like one of their own, not like someone less important because he had no home or money. At the diner, the group sat together at a large table. The biker who had first asked for help told everyone the story of how the homeless man had used his last $8 to buy a small repair kit and snacks. They all listened quietly, then cheered and clapped for the man's generosity. "It's not about how much you have," one biker said. "It's about what's in your heart." The man felt tears sting his eyes. For the first time in a long time, he felt seen and valued. After breakfast, the bikers talked about ways they could help him more. Some knew people who could offer jobs, while others had contacts with shelters and programs to help people get back on their feet. They weren't just here for a one-time thank you. They wanted to make sure this man had a chance to rebuild his life. One of the bikers, a quiet man with a gentle smile, said, "We all have hard times, but when someone shows kindness, it makes a difference. Now it's our turn to return that kindness to you." The homeless man couldn't believe it. For so long he had lived day by day, not knowing what tomorrow would bring. Now here was a whole community standing behind him, ready to help. Over the next few days, things started to change. The bikers kept coming by, checking on him, bringing food and clothes. Some helped him clean up and even gave him advice on how to find a steady job. With their support, he felt more hopeful and confident. One biker helped him fill out applications and gave tips on interviews. Another offered to teach him some handy skills to work on motorcycles, a trade that could provide steady income. Slowly but surely, the homeless man began to imagine a future that was brighter than the cold streets. More than the material help, the thing that touched him most was the sense of belonging. He was no longer invisible or ignored. The bikers treated him like family, and that feeling healed a part of him that had been broken for years. At night, when the city was quiet and the streetlights flickered, he thought about how one simple act, a small gesture of kindness, had brought all this into his life. It wasn't about money or status. It was about the human connection. It was about seeing another person's pain and choosing to help anyway. As the days went by, the man started volunteering alongside the bikers. He helped organize food drives and charity rides. He shared his story with others who were struggling, reminding them that kindness could change everything. The bikers had given him a chance, and he wanted to pay it forward. One afternoon, as the man fixed a motorcycle under the guidance of his new friends, he looked around and smiled. Life had been hard, but it was also full of unexpected beauty. The kindness of strangers had given him hope and a new family. He knew that no matter what challenges came next, he was not alone. The community that had once been strangers now stood beside him, proving that even in the darkest times, a single act of kindness could light up the world. And so, from a small moment on a cold night, a movement of care and friendship was born, one that would continue to grow, touch more lives, and remind everyone that sometimes all it takes is one good heart to start a wave of change. The morning after that cold night, the homeless man woke up feeling a quiet sense of peace. Even though he had only $8 left, he had used it to help someone in real need, and that made his heart lighter. The memory of the struggling biker, the man with worn-out boots and a tired face, had stayed with him. He had never expected anything in return. Helping others was something he did simply because it was right. As he stepped outside, the chilly air hit his face. But something felt different. The street he had known for so long seemed a little brighter. There was an energy in the air, a sense of hope that was unusual for his quiet corner of the city. Walking slowly down the block, he noticed something he couldn't believe. A long line of motorcycles was parked nearby, each one shiny and powerful, stretching around the corner and down the street. Curious, he moved closer. Standing at the front of the crowd was a group of tough-looking men and women, motorcycle enthusiasts he had only heard about in stories. They wore leather jackets, patches, and bandanas, and their faces showed respect and gratitude. The homeless man realized this was no ordinary gathering. These people had come for him. They had heard what he did, how he helped one of their own when nobody else would. One of the bikers stepped forward and spoke with a warm smile. "We wanted to say thank you. Your kindness didn't go unnoticed. That man you helped is a part of our family, and so are you now." The homeless man felt a lump in his throat. He was touched by the genuine appreciation in their voices. The group began to offer support in ways he hadn't imagined. Some brought food and warm clothes. Others talked about finding him a place to stay and helping him get back on his feet. It wasn't just about one night or one act of kindness anymore. This was a chance for a new beginning, a fresh start fueled by the kindness he had shown. News about this incredible act spread quickly. Stories were shared on social media, and soon even more motorcycle lovers, neighbors, and kind-hearted people showed up to lend a hand. They came with donations, offers of jobs, and words of encouragement. The homeless man was overwhelmed but grateful. For the first time in a long while, he felt like he belonged somewhere. Despite all the attention and offers, he remained humble. He said quietly, "I didn't do it for this. I helped because it was the right thing to do. But I'm thankful for everyone who has shown me kindness now. It means more than I can say." In the days that followed, the community came together to help him rebuild his life. They worked side by side, fixing up a small place for him to live and helping him find a job. The biker community became like a family, supporting each other through thick and thin. Through this journey, the homeless man learned that kindness could travel farther than he ever imagined. One small act had touched many lives and created a ripple effect of generosity and hope. The motorcycles that once only roared through the streets now stood as symbols of a powerful bond, a reminder that even in tough times, people can come together to change lives. And as he looked around at the faces of those who had come to help, the homeless man knew something deep inside. Sometimes when you give from the heart, the world gives back in ways you never expect. The sun was just rising, casting a soft golden light over the quiet street. The man who had once been homeless slowly opened his eyes, feeling a calm he had not known in a long time. Just a few weeks ago, his life had been a constant struggle, filled with uncertainty and loneliness. But now, everything was changing in ways he could never have imagined. That morning, the peaceful moment was suddenly filled with the roar of engines. One after another, motorcycles began to arrive, their sounds echoing off the buildings. It wasn't just a few bikes. It was a long line of them, stretching down the street. Curious neighbors came out of their houses, watching with surprise as a large group of riders parked in front of the small home where the man now lived. These weren't just any riders. They were the Hells Angels, the very group that had once been strangers to him. But now they were like family. The man had helped one of their own when no one else would, giving the last $8 he had to a stranger in need. That act of kindness had started something much bigger than he ever expected. The leader of the group stepped forward. He smiled warmly and said, "We came to say thank you. You helped one of us when no one else would. You didn't have to do it, but you did. That means a lot to all of us." The man felt his throat tighten. He wasn't used to such attention, and the kindness was almost overwhelming. Tears welled up in his eyes, but he held them back. "I just did what felt right," he said quietly. One by one, the bikers came closer, shaking his hand, patting him on the back, and offering words of encouragement. Some handed him warm clothes, others brought food and blankets. It was clear they wanted to help him more than just with words. They wanted to change his life. The man looked around, amazed at the scene. He had never imagined that helping someone could lead to this. For so long, he had believed that the world had forgotten about people like him, that kindness was rare. But here, in front of his small home, surrounded by people who respected him, he felt hope again. As the day went on, more and more people arrived, not just the bikers, but others from the town who had heard the story. They brought gifts, offered jobs, and promised support. Some wanted to learn more about the man who had made such a big difference with a simple act of kindness. The story had spread quickly, touching hearts everywhere. The man's life began to change in ways he never thought possible. The Hells Angels helped him find a steady job at a local garage. They taught him skills, helped him fix bikes, and showed him that hard work and determination could lead to something better. With their support, he moved into a small apartment nearby and started saving money. More importantly, he felt like he belonged. The isolation he had once felt was replaced with friendship and community. The bikers weren't just a group. They were a family who had embraced him, seen his worth, and lifted him up when he was down. He still remembered the cold nights on the street, the hunger, and the loneliness. But those memories no longer controlled him. Instead, they reminded him how far he had come and how powerful a small act of kindness could be. He wanted to share that lesson with others, to show that even when life is hard, generosity and care can open doors. One afternoon, as he was fixing a motorcycle, a young boy walked into the garage. The boy looked nervous but hopeful. The man smiled and welcomed him. He saw himself in that boy, the same uncertainty, the same need for someone to believe in him. Without hesitation, he offered the boy a chance to learn, to work, and to grow. That simple gesture started a new chapter. Over time, more young people from the neighborhood came to him seeking guidance and support. The man who once had nothing became a mentor, helping others find their way just as he had been helped. The community noticed the change. The man's story inspired many to act with kindness in their own lives. People began looking out for one another more, realizing that even the smallest help could create a ripple effect. The neighborhood grew stronger, closer, and filled with hope. Years later, the man often thought back to the day he gave his last $8 to a stranger on the side of the road. That moment, small and quiet at the time, had changed everything. It had brought him friendship, stability, and a new purpose. It had shown him that kindness is never wasted, no matter how little you have to give. His life was no longer defined by what he lacked, but by the love and care he shared with others. He had become a living proof that one good deed can lead to many more, creating a chain of hope that lifts everyone. As the sun set on another day, the man looked out his window at the motorcycles parked outside, the sign of a community that believed in second chances and the power of kindness. He smiled, knowing that his journey was far from over, but that he was no longer walking it alone.